Hi, everyone. So we'll give it a second to just let people enter the room. I see the numbers are rising, so we'll give it a second and then we'll get started. Okay, let's jump in. So hello and welcome to A Taste of China, which is an online program that pairs taste with place to explore China's vast culinary landscape. I'm Dinda Elliott, the Director of Programs at China Institute, and I'm honored to be here with my great friend Zhang Mei, the founder of WildChina, who are our partners in this wonderful series. Each episode takes us to a different part of China, and today we are traveling to Sichuan province, famous for its spicy cuisine. More precisely, we're looking at the capital city of Chengdu. It's also, as you can see, a very modern city, but it's also known for its tea houses and its leisurely lifestyle, its spicy hot pot, its panda research and breeding center, and its funky rap scene. So at the end of this episode, we will take some questions from the audience. So please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. And May, let me turn it over to you before we bring in our first guest. Over to you, May.
Thank you, Dinda. Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's great to see you all again, old friends, new friends. My name is Zhang Mei. I am the founder of WildChina, as Dinda introduced me a little earlier. This Taste of China is our 62nd virtual events at WildChina. Started from February a year ago. I cannot believe it, but we're sticking to the commitment. While you cannot travel, we're bringing China to you. So thank you for joining us. I'm thrilled to be co-hosting this event with Dinda Elliott at China Institute and our incredible panel of Sichuan food experts. We have, they have worked in Sichuan cuisine in their own way to share their love and taste with all of us. So first, we're going to hear from Jing Gao, who was born in Chengdu. She's an entrepreneur and now lives in LA, in California, Southern California. And then we will hear from our dear friend, Fuchsia Dunlop, a world-renowned cookbook writer and chef as well. Since she is in the UK, we may have to resort to a recorded video. And then hopefully, if technical difficulties overcome, we will take a deep dive into a culinary school in Chengdu itself. This will be very special peak. We hope the technology works, right? So let's start. I'm going to start with Jing. She is the founder and CEO of Fly by Jing, a company bringing Sichuan chili crisp to the West. We'll ask what that means, right? Anyone who has lived or currently lives in China is probably very familiar with the sort of ubiquitous Lao Ganma chili sauce. But Jing has something different. So she'll tell us about her secret of how to make that happen. And Jing also, because she grew up in Sichuan, so she will bring a lot of her experience in Chengdu blended with her exposure to Western cuisine and sort of bring a worldview of Sichuan food. So welcome Jing. Please join us.
Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I'll start with the first question. Maybe you can lay a little bit set the stage for us. Tell us a bit about your story growing up in Chengdu and how you ended up to fall in love with Sichuan cuisine from the United States later on.
Right, yeah. So what brought me to Sichuan food was actually that I didn't grow up in Chengdu. I was born there, but I grew up in Europe and in Canada. Okay. So I actually moved every year of my life from when I was 5 until almost high school, and to a different country with a different language, different culture every year. My father was a nuclear physicist and he was a professor. So we moved with his job a lot until we finally settled in Canada. And so growing up, I felt quite disconnected actually from my heritage and from this, this identity, rooted in being Chinese. It felt very foreign to me. I didn't feel like I really belonged anywhere. And it was actually this effort to seek belonging or to try to fit in that I adopted the name Jenny for like almost 30 years of my life. So I actually only reclaimed my birth name Jing last year. So, you know, I was constantly kind of code switching and adapting to different environments. And then after university in Canada, I've had the opportunity to go to China. And so I was in Beijing and I was working at the time in tech. And it really dawned on me how disconnected I had become from who I was. And I started to try to dig deeper to try to figure out what that was, but through, and interestingly, it happened through food. So at first I was just really, amazed by the diversity and the complexity of Chinese flavors. And then the more I kind of studied it, learned about it, I realized how little we know about it in the West. And so I became really passionate about shining light on it through, writing and through different kinds of media projects. And I eventually, it eventually like took over my life so much that I ended up leaving my day job in tech and I founded a restaurant in Shanghai. So I had spent about 10 years in China in my 20s, and it kind of led me down this path into food. And so I started with this restaurant, which was celebrating regional Chinese cuisines, but in a modern and sustainable kind of transparently sourced type of way. And that, led me to what I'm doing now, which is Fly by Jing. And Fly by Jing is actually inspired by the flavors of fly restaurants, which are these really wonderful hole in the wall restaurants that are famous in Chengdu. They're literally called, that's an example of one. They're literally called 苍蝇馆, so like fly restaurants. And they're called that because they are known to be so delicious that no matter how shabby or how lacking in atmosphere or how hard to find, people will find them and flock to them like flies because they're so delicious. So it's kind of flavor above all else, and that really is, I think, the defining characteristic of Chengdu people. People in Chengdu are all about kind of the art of living. And as part of that, it's like leisure, flavor, just kind of, I don't know, I think hedonistic pursuits maybe. But so this kind of pursuit of flavor is such a key part of the foodie culture in Chengdu. And what's really beautiful about fly restaurants also is that they are such an equalizer. When you go to them, you see people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds. You have bicycles and parked next to Ferraris, and everybody is just sharing a meal, and just kind of coming together in this pursuit of flavor. And so I was really inspired by these restaurants because I feel like they're kind of like the lifeblood of Chengdu dining and food culture. And there's such an energy and a dynamism to it. There's so much innovation happening with young restaurateurs who are kind of pushing the fly restaurant concept forward. It was constantly evolving. And so I actually ended up, moving to Chengdu for a bit and studying with a famous chef there. His name is Yu Bo. And I just, was kind of trying to figure out what was my contribution to, Chinese cuisine or Sichuan cuisine going to be, because, I wanted to not just, reproduce something, but to push the conversation forward. Because having grown up in the West, I knew that not only was there misrepresentation or misunderstanding about what Chinese food is, there was also active prejudice against Chinese cuisine, where people valued it kind of at the lowest end of all the different cultural ethnic cuisines, because there was a perception that it was dirty, cheap, unhealthy. And I knew, having lived in China and grown up eating Chinese food, that was not the case. And so, but what I was really inspired by fly restaurants, because I saw so many young restaurateurs really, not bound by any rules, and just kind of, innovating and doing fun and having fun, and expressing themselves through their food. And meanwhile, in the West, there was a tendency, I felt, for people to want to hold on to this concept of authenticity, right? Or like kind of put Chinese food in a box and be like, well, I experienced, Chinese food once and it was this way, so it has to be this way. Or like, if it's not this way, it's not authentic. Or, I've been to Chinatown, or I have a Chinese partner, or whatever it is. And it's like, there tends to be this like almost like a claim of the cuisine, and that wasn't what I saw on the ground. And I felt like the greatest cuisines, they evolve and thrive when they evolve, and if they don't, that's when a cuisine dies.
So this is quite interesting. When I first saw the name in English, fly restaurant, I took it as a verb, as bird flying, right? But in Chinese, it's 苍蝇, it's the noun of the actual insect fly. Have you had difficulty translating that concept, marketing this concept in America? Because flies association with food is normally not pleasant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not so much. I think, luckily fly has many meanings in English, and so it can also mean really cool. And so nobody really questions it. But the fact that it means like the kind of, buzzing flies is kind of reflective of just like how we are, how this company, how our values are in general. It's kind of like, we don't mind kind of, provoking a little bit and like getting you to think about things a little differently. And it's like, it's the same way like fly restaurants in Chengdu. I mean, flies are considered dirty everywhere, right? And it's the same in Chengdu, but it's kind of like this cheeky way that Chengdu people refer to themselves, because they're the flies that are flying to these restaurants.
Can I in for 1 second before we jump to, I know we're going to go talk to Fuchsia Dunlop in a minute or two, but I'm really curious if you can talk a little bit, Jing, about this lifestyle in Chengdu, that it's known to be the city where people love leisure, the tea houses, eating. Like what does Chengdu feel like? Tell us a little bit about why, what you love about it.
Yeah, Chengdu is one of the things that I heard about Chengdu. I think my mom was saying, it's like you can hear the clanking of mahjong tiles before you even land in Chengdu. Like it is such a place of leisure. Park culture is huge. People, I mean, I don't really quite know how they just like hang out in parks all day. Like they just drink tea. There's, it's just the art of living. They've really got it down. It's like they drink tea, play mahjong, and eat delicious food.
Yeah. Then before we go though, Jing, I want you to show us the chili crisp. Why did you call it chili crisp rather than chili sauce? So I thought it was something crispy.
Yeah, so this is one of my products. This is the Sichuan chili crisp. And the chili crisp was just, it's not quite an oil, right? Because there's texture. So it was a reference to mouthfeel and texture, which, with a word that a Western audience can kind of grasp. So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a very different type of hot sauce than what we're used to in the West, where it's like vinegar based, smooth and blended. And, you know, Chinese food, as we know, is about many different things, not just heat for hot sauce, but it's also about flavor, about the way it looks, the color, the fragrance, and the mouthfeel. So it was just, you know, I don't think it's a perfect word to encompass what it is, but it is close.
What are the ingredients in there?
So in this product, we have more than 18 ingredients, and it's a blend of different chilies sourced from Sichuan and Guizhou, different types of oils. So Sichuan cooking uses rapeseed oil, which is very different from European rapeseed oil. It's a really healthy, extremely fragrant, nutty oil that gives it a very distinct taste. And then there's, you know, a lot of things to add depth and flavor, depth and texture. So fermented black beans, you know, fried garlic, shallots, ginger, all kinds of aromatics. And it's, you know, and of course Sichuan pepper. So Sichuan pepper, the one that we use is called tribute pepper. We actually sell it as well. And tribute pepper is gong jiao. So it's literally what used to be given to the emperor as a tribute. And it is extremely rare, and it's only grown in one tiny part of Sichuan. And, you know, before we started exporting it, it was basically unavailable outside of China because it's so high in demand. Even in China, it's hard to get. So, but it's, you know, anyone who has worked, you know, trained in cooking knows that ingredients are everything. And the same recipe, you can use different grades of ingredients, you'll end up with very, very different things. And
Yeah.
so, you know, this combination of ingredients and especially the quality and then the craftsmanship, it actually hasn't been done before because it is very personal to my personal experience. And so that's why we say it's not traditional, but personal.
Fantastic. My mouth is already watering. After the session for my noodles, I'm buying your chili sauce. So for everyone who's interested, Jing's website is flybyjing, JING.com, or you can follow her on Instagram, flybyjing. Now, Dinda, I'm going to hand things over to you. And thank you so much, Jing. Hang around. We'll come back to you with Q&A.
Exactly. Don't go away. Thank you, May. So yeah, that gong jiao, I'm really interested in that. I definitely want to get some of that because I've been struggling, and I'm very excited that later, if technology allows us, we're going to zoom our way over to Chengdu and go to the cooking school. And I think we're going to witness the making of some mapo tofu. And I've been struggling to make a mapo tofu for about 30 years now. So I think I need your gong jiao for my mapo tofu. So it is my really great pleasure now to introduce Fuchsia Dunlop. Though I know many of you probably already know her and may even have a handful of her books on your cookbook shelf. Fuchsia Dunlop is a world famous chef and an award-winning author from England. And what does this have to do with China, you might ask? Well, Fuchsia Dunlop became an expert in Sichuan food when she lived in Chengdu. And she was the very first foreigner to graduate from the prestigious Sichuan Institute of Higher Cuisine, which we're going to visit later tonight. Fuchsia has since published a number of books about her specialization in Chinese cuisine, bringing the authentic flavors of China into the homes of many around the world. And so without further ado, I apologize that we've pre-recorded this conversation because it's the middle of the night in London right now. So Fuchsia was delighted to join us in the conversation, and here she is. Okay, so hi Fuchsia, we're so delighted to have you join us. Thanks so much.
Hello from London.
Great to have you. So Fuchsia, tell us a little bit, since we're going to go to Chengdu in a few minutes. So tell us a little bit about what you love about Chengdu. You lived there for several years, right? For some time.
I lived there originally for a couple of years, but I've continued to go back and forth for about 25 years. So it's the place in China that feels most like home. And I think, I mean, everyone falls in love with Chengdu. It's not just foreigners, also Chinese people. And there is a saying which is 少不如传, which is that if you're young, you shouldn't go to Sichuan because you'll just sort of fall in love with it. You'll dissipate all your energies because it's a famously sort of idle, pleasure-loving city. So ambitious people should steer clear. But I think the thing about Chengdu is that it's just a very welcoming place. People are funny and open-minded. And yeah, there's a sort of sense of humor about it that you just catch immediately. And then, as I just mentioned, it has a reputation for being a xiuxian changsha, a leisurely city, where people love nothing better than to just sit around in tea houses playing mahjong and bai longmenja and having a good chat and drinking tea and eating delicious food. And food, of course, is one of the main attractions because the food is just sensational. And the thing about Sichuanese food is that it's not only delicious, but it's very accessible. So it's seen, although Sichuan does have a very sophisticated banquet cooking at the highest levels, it's best known for its folk cooking and its street food. And you can just go into quite ordinary looking restaurants, the so-called fly restaurants, and have just, I mean, when I went there, I had the best Chinese food I had in my life in a very nondescript little place by a bus station. And the flavors were so exciting and varied. It was very colorful, lots of fresh green vegetables, the sort of, you know, deep reds of chili bean sauce, all these kind of lovely colors. And also it's very accessible. So the great Sichuanese dishes are not very expensive, most of them. I mean, things like one of my old favorites, yu xiang qiezi, fish fragrant eggplant. That's just an ordinary ingredient, but using Sichuanese flavoring techniques, it becomes something ambrosial. So even as a student there in the 1990s, my friends and I we went to very cheap restaurants and noodle shops and we just ate like kings. It was fantastic.
That's great. So what's something that you think that Westerners in particular don't know about Sichuan cuisine?
Well, I think one of the ironies is that while Sichuanese cuisine has become very well known and very popular internationally, I think people are often taken in by this stereotype that it's just about the great drama of loads of chilies and Sichuan pepper and great pools of oil. Because a lot of the dishes that have become most trendy in China and abroad have been things like shui zhu yu, which is like a Greek basin full of oily chilies and spices with slippery bits of fish in it. All these romantic dishes, which are great fun, but it's so much more subtle than that. And actually, the real heart and soul of Sichuanese cooking lies in the flavoring techniques. They say in Sichuan, 一菜一个白菜百味, which means each dish has its own style and 100 dishes have 100 different flavors. And the whole point of Sichuanese cooking is not that it just smacks you around the head with spice, but that it's a sort of exciting journey. So some dishes may be spicy and hot, others will have an undercurrent of sweetness, some of them will be entirely savory, some will be very qingdan, very lightly flavored. So it's all about balance. But I think in any part of China, a well-planned menu has a lovely variety of taste. But in Sichuan, you've got these very dramatic highs and then gentle lows. And so it is very stimulating. But I think it's the sophistication of the flavoring and the variety that it maybe is a little lost on people because of the stereotype.
We definitely miss out on the subtlety. That's definitely true. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about what it was like to be a student at the, great provincial cooking school. What was that experience? People think you were weird. Was it, what was the hardest part? What was it like?
Well, it was an absolutely wonderful experience. It was extraordinary because I was the first foreign student they'd ever had. So I was sort of flung into a class full of 50, mainly young men, Sichuanese men. There were 2 other women in my class. I was the only foreigner and the first foreigner they'd ever had. So I think the biggest challenge was really language, because although I'd been living in Chengdu for a year at that point, all the classes were taught in full-on Sichuan dialect.
Oh my gosh, wow.
And, yeah, and all the textbooks were in Chinese. And of course, Chinese is a very sophisticated culinary vocabulary. So I hadn't learned all the characters for different cooking methods and cuts and things like that. So I remember it was a very steep learning curve in the beginning. And also it was that time in the 90s when there really weren't very many foreigners in China. It was quite soon after the country had started opening up. And so certainly most of my classmates were from quite modest backgrounds, some in the countryside, but they had never interacted with foreigners before. So firstly, I'm sure they were very skeptical that I was a woman, and also I was a foreigner. And so it was just a sort of strange encounter. And we cooked in the afternoons in teams of 10, and I was the only woman in my team. And I do remember that some of my classmates were, I had to be a little bit assertive to get included in decision making and things, because they were just a bit, I suppose a bit shy and a bit awkward because they just hadn't met foreigners before. But it was an absolute privilege to go there, and particularly because at that time, it was so very traditional. So everything was done from scratch. There was a side room with enormous clay pickle jars with traditionally pickled chilies and doubanjiang, chili bean sauce. Some of the ingredients were so fresh they were alive, like little fish and eels. We had no equipment really, apart from we each had our own cleaver, wooden cutting boards, woks, and gas burners, and that was about it. So it was really, for me, it was just wonderful to learn from the real traditional fundamentals. And of course it was delicious. So we used to study theory in the mornings and then watch our teachers do a demonstration. And then there would be a tasting, which was obviously very exciting. And then we had a lunch break, and then we would go and all cook. Each of us would cook a dish for ourselves, and it was just amazingly good fun.
Wow. And can you do Sichuan dialect? I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but can you really understand Sichuan dialect? That's tough.
Oh, well, I'm very used to it, so I can understand it mostly. But
Yeah.
I suppose that when I'm around Sichuanese people, I start speaking with a Sichuanese accent.
Yeah.
And I have been, people in other parts of China have sometimes looked at me and said, "Why are you speaking Sichuanese?" So I don't really do it consciously, but it's just, I have acquired a bit of an ear for it, I suppose.
Right, fabulous. And you've kept in touch with the school, right? So you are one of their most famous alumni.
Well, yes, so a couple of teachers there have remained friends, and certainly my teachers of that time, they're now retired. But I went to visit them last time I was in Chengdu, and it's just been so wonderful to give them my book as a present, particularly now that they're out in Chinese. The Sichuan cookbook and Shark's Fin and Sichuan Pepper came out in Chinese editions. So they can actually see what this crazy foreign student has done with what they taught her. So yeah, and I just always feel very grateful, because it was a real, it was just, I think it was a strange time in China when things were changing. They didn't have any foreign students, and it was just the kindness of the leaders and the teachers at the school who thought, let's give her a chance. I'll never forget that.
That's so fantastic. And so with that, thank you for setting the stage for us, Fuchsia. We're so thrilled to have you. And with that, I think we're now actually going to go to Chengdu, and we're going to go to the famous cooking school. So thanks a million, Fuchsia. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
Hi, everybody. So let's see, can you see me? So that was just great. And now I am really delighted. I think we've got the technology going. So I'm delighted to lead us all to Chengdu. We're going to zoom over to Chengdu. We're going to talk to Zheng Wei, who is a teacher of culinary culture at the Sichuan Institute of Higher Cuisine. And teacher Zheng is going to take us into a classroom kitchen so we can see where China's masters learn the art of Sichuan cooking. So let's see if we can get Zheng 老师 onto the screen. 郑老师你在吗？你能不能进来？哎，let's see, I see Ben Yi, I see our translator. 郑老师你在吗？
是不是要给他发一个信息？
I think Aaron is going to work some magic in the back and bring him onto the screen.
I can see 郑老师的名字 in Chinese, so
Okay, good. Let's see. Oh yes, I see Zhang Wei. Okay, so he should be 张伟。喂，请问你能不能打开你的那个怎么说呢？那个 camera 那个镜头。
镜头对。
镜头。
千呼万唤始出来 means you keep calling and then the beauty shows.
郑伟，你能听见吗？我们就是你的喇叭也要打开一下吧。Let me just check and see what's going on. If we can't get Zhang Wei on, which would be a great shame. Okay, they're trying. Bear with us for a second. This is a miracle of modern technology, by the way, zooming all the way over to Chengdu to the kitchen, teaching kitchen. I know they're still trying behind the scenes to get Zhang Wei on screen.
While we are trying, I actually have a question for Jing.
Yeah, let's bring Jing back. Jing, can you open your camera and unmute yourself? And come back?
And while teacher Zheng works out the technology front. So, my kids.
时这个允许啊。哎 ，Hello。
We'll come back
Oh.
later.
声音大一点。
We'll come back to you later, Jing. Okay, 张老师。
Sorry，我一直在调试，现在辛苦一点点。
张老师
，Hello， 欢迎大家。
Nice to see you.
欢迎。
Great to see you. OK，
先简要介绍一下。
我给你介绍一下，张梅是我们的合伙伴，璧山的创造
旅行的创始人，谢谢。
创始人 ，right? So
nice to meet you.
So exciting.
好，我简要介绍一下，我的名字叫郑伟，我是四川旅游学院老师，我现在正在我们中国成都四川旅游学院烹饪，我们四川旅游学院烹饪实训大楼，我给大家看一下。
OK， 太好，等一下我们翻译一下啊。
Yeah, so he's just I'm
我把它转过来镜头。
等一下，就是翻译过来吧。
So I'm just going to introduce myself briefly. My name is Zhang Wei. I am a part of the Travel Academy in Sichuan, and right now I am here inside the culinary. 继续说吧。
好嘞，接下来我们就进入我们的一堂实验，烹饪的一堂实训操作课程。
Now going into an experimental class on cooking.
Very exciting. We're going into the actual kitchen.
好，大家跟我来。这就是我们的实训操作课程，我们的同学正在学习。我给大家介绍一下。
太好。
这是我们的雷老师，这是我们的同学们。现在我们大家正在做一道菜，是川菜的经典代表，叫麻婆豆腐。
OK， 等一下我们翻译一下吧。
So we're right now in the middle of a class with all the students and also a teacher, and they're right now in the middle of making a legendary dish that is mapo tofu.
你可以继续吧。
好嘞，稍等，好嘞。那么这样，主持人，我们现在是要我们雷老师现场操作一下麻婆豆腐的制作过程。主持人如果有什么需要疑问的，可以跟雷老师直接交流，好吧
？OK， 太好 ，Great，
太棒了。
Right. So right now, teacher Lee is going to demonstrate.
好，那我们就来看雷老师的杰作麻婆豆腐。
OK, great. So we get to watch Li Lao Shi, teacher Li, make some mapo.
Yeah. 你说说，我在这说一下
啊。我们先放油啊，把锅支好以后先放油。麻婆豆腐一定要有足够的油 才能使我们麻婆豆腐很烫啊。
There must be enough oil.
Wow, they use a lot of oil. Look at that.
我们下郫县豆瓣，低油温啊，大概油温在120度以内啊。郫县豆瓣。
Now he's adding the fermented bean paste. It's about 120 Celsius, the oil.
Wow, so it has to be very hot.
No, I don't think it's very hot yet.
Okay. Interesting. So you add the chili paste first. Okay.
充分的把郫县豆瓣酱炒香，炒出颜色，然后我们第二步就放这个辣椒粉啊。
Wow.
The oil is going to bring out the color and the aroma of the bean paste, and then he's gonna add the chili powder.
Wow.
Wow.
你放那么多不会太辣吗？ Is it not too spicy?
它这火的声音有点大，哎，您说啊，我能听得到。
OK，没关系。
没关系啊，
因为这个火，它的这个温度很高，火的热力很高，所以说
好，辣椒粉炒香以后。
He says it's very, very hot. So the fire is so hot that it's hard for them to hear us because it's really loud. 这是什么东西呢？
豆豉，四川菜的一个调味料，豆豉。
Okay, what is 豆豉，班姨？
I have to look this up. I actually don't know.
She has to look it up. Okay, we're not sure. We've just added some mysterious ingredient. What is it, May?
这个豆豉受热的程度很大，所以说我们稍微炒一下就可以了。
Okay.
It's fermented soya beans.
Right, got it. This is so fantastic.
这是高汤。
Most likely bone stock or chicken stock.
Chicken stock. Okay. Yeah.
四川高汤。 李老师，我想问一下，就是最重要的，你做麻婆豆腐的话，最重要的动作或者一部分是什么呢？ I'm just asking, what's the most important part of making mapo tofu? 好，有李老师解答一下。
吴老师，你讲。
他问的主持人问，就做麻婆豆腐最重要的一个操作步骤是什么呢？
做麻婆豆腐最重要的操作步骤应该是我们要调料要齐，我们要有正宗的郫县豆瓣酱和我们正宗的汉源花椒，还有我们的永川的豆豉，这些调味酱是我们做麻婆豆腐最重要的环节。
OK， 等一下翻译一下。
So he's saying that the most important step in making mapo tofu is getting all the ingredients ready. So that includes the fermented bean paste, and then also the
你们上个镜头。
辣椒.
So the most important thing is having the proper ingredients. Is that what he's saying?
Yes, getting it all ready together.
搭煎它以后呢，我们就把这个豆腐我们今天用的是嫩豆腐
OK
内子豆腐，嫩豆腐。对。
They're using the
方块型的嫩豆腐。
They're using what? They're using the soft
tofu.
Soft tofu. Yeah.
I didn't see. 我没见到什么花椒进去了呀。
还没有
花椒放了没有？
没有
了，还没有，还没到。
花椒要最后这个豆腐锅的时候才加花椒，然后最后使这个花椒的香味儿展现在客人面前。花椒加早了以后，花椒加早了以后，它的香味儿和麻味儿要挥发掉。
Oh, okay. Banyi, go ahead and translate.
So we're talking about the Sichuan pepper. So he's saying that the Sichuan pepper needs to be added last because in order to preserve the aroma and flavor. If you add it too early, it's going to evaporate.
I see. So that's the famous Sichuan pepper, which makes your mouth tingle. It's kind of like it's
现在开始加调味料，
加了鲜汤，下了豆腐以后，加少许的盐、
盐、
味精，
味精，
然后加酱油。
味精
adding some salt.
And soy sauce.
Oh, not much.
Huh.
这个酱油看黑。好，盐、味精、酱油，因为酱油呢，我们可以少量多次的加，你加进去很容易，拿出来你就很困难了
What did he say?
He said, when you add salt, be very careful. It's easy to add a bunch, but if it's overspiced, it's very difficult.
没有麻
So you shouldn't add too much, yeah?
好，现在就是我们等我们这个豆腐烧透了以后，我们可以加牛肉末。牛肉末我们先加一半，加一半，使牛肉的香味儿和豆腐融合在一起。
牛肉末
再加一半。
牛肉末加一半
牛肉末提前怎么加工过吗？
牛肉末提前加工过吗？
对，牛肉末我们有的时候把它称为叫牛肉臊子。我们在刚开始的时候呢，用低油温慢炒，然后使它产生香味儿。
So what he just added is ground beef.
Okay.
It's a very different color from the ground beef that you cook with generally, because there's another step which he's not showing that he already
高汤。
这个因为我跟他说的时间长了，这里汤少了，因为我也不这个不用了。
So he's already sort of sautéed the beef before?
Yes, low heat.
Yeah.
Over a longer period of time so that it's flavorful already.
Okay. I thought it was made with pork.
No, mapo tofu very often is beef.
Okay.
然后那个麻婆豆腐的牛肉臊子加了一半以后，通过这个加热，那个香味和豆腐融合在一起了，我们把最后一半的肉末下到里面。这个肉末就是使我们麻婆豆腐形成的，它的特点就是臊子的酥香的酥，在这个时候产生的。
酥的意思脆的，是不是？就是没有软，是吧？
对，看到什么？
没听明白。
我说酥的意思，你之所以留一半在最后加，是这样子，它还有脆的那个感觉，口感是不是？
对，最后客人在嘴里它有这个牛肉臊子酥的感觉。如果加的很早的话，它就没有了。
So this is fantastic. This is truly high cuisine because he separated to add the ground beef in 2 batches.
Yeah.
First is to bring out the flavor with the tofu in, when it's sort of cooking together. And then the last half you add it in later, it doesn't get soggy. It's fairly crispy.
Oh, wow.
继续。
好，我们现在开始勾第一次芡，因为麻婆豆腐一定要烫，所以说我们在勾芡的次数上起码要保持2次以上的勾芡，使这个豆腐的热量充分的被吸收。第一次。
So Banyi, can you translate that a little bit?
Now he's adding, so he's going to add corn flour twice to thicken the
第一次勾芡以后，我们可以把我们的蒜苗头放在里面进行第2次勾芡。
Oh.
After the chicken, the first time the corn flour is added, he's adding the 蒜苗头. I don't know.
对。好，第2次勾芡。
Okay.
麻婆豆腐要保持豆腐的完整。
Garlic sprouts.
一定要用推的这个方法你看。好了，我们第2次勾芡以后， 下蒜苗尾进行第3次勾芡。
Okay, so doing it a second time.
So this is the plant that grows out of the garlic, the green garlic.
Yeah.
The first time he added the white part, and the second time he added the green leafy part.
Okay.
好，第3次勾芡以后，基本上我们整个麻婆豆腐的操作程序就可以完成了，可以起锅。起锅装盘了以后，装完了以后，我们才加我们的花椒粉。
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So
They don't add the Sichuan peppercorns until the very end, the very, very end of the whole process.
He adds it in ground format.
Yes. Yeah.
现在要起锅了，美味已成。
Wow. 好美。
谢谢。
Beautiful.
装一盘就可以了啊。
哇，好香的味道。
那个花椒你还没有加，是不是？
对对，还没有。
还没有加。
点睛之笔还没有，最后一步。
拿手套去夹，要不然呢，这手不能去的。勺子，对。
好，现在就开始。
Okay, there we
这
go.
个最后加花椒，花椒的用量呢，就是根据我们麻婆豆腐的这个对麻的喜爱的程度，再多它都不为过啊，再多都不为过。花椒粉啊。
So
这
the
个是
amount
因为豆腐是热的，花椒一上到上面去了，那个香味就扑鼻而来啊。
Oh my gosh. 等一下，我们翻译一下。Okay,
so the amount of the ground peppercorn is dependent on the the person's preference, but he's saying that no amount is too much. There's never too, you can't have too much. And because the tofu is hot, it releases the aroma really quickly, and you can.
Oh my
有没有
goodness.
工具？
Wow, look at that.
对，还没少对。有筷子。你看，就现在的豆腐，你如果做出来的豆腐上面有烟冒出来的话，你的豆腐勾芡的就没有勾好。那我们现在所有的热量都在碗里，都在豆腐里面，知道吗？就是勾芡和油的这个使用，是我们做麻婆豆腐当中也是比较精髓的。这豆腐起码放10分钟它是烫的。豆腐一定要烫啊。
Okay, 等一下我们翻译啊。
So if at this stage smoke is coming out of the tofu, it means that you didn't do the thickening with the corn flour properly. So the ratio that's being done is really important.
哎 ，wait a minute， 等一下，我们翻译一下好不好？我们听不清楚。
好的，你翻译一下，哎。好的。
Say again, please.
Oh, okay. So I'm just gonna repeat it. If at this point smoke is coming out of the dish,
okay,
it means that you haven't done the corn flour properly.
I see. So the students are now learning also about they're watching. So Benny, I'd love to. Can you help us please ask the teacher Lee, what is the most difficult part of Sichuan cooking as far as he's concerned? What does he tell his students? What's the most difficult part? 张老师，我们想问老师一个问题啊。
好的，你问雷老师问题吗？
对。
你们两个都
您说
一下吧。这个就是他想问，就是四川这个就是这个里面就是最难的是什么东西？
你是说什么川菜的吗？还是说我们麻婆豆腐？
是说做四川菜最难的。李老师，你觉得最难的是什么东西？
有挑战性。
有挑战性。
哎，怎么对雷老师的镜头？雷老师回答。
你好啊！
哎，你好。
这样能看得清。
看得清楚，很好。
清楚。你好。
好。
冯老师好，我见过你啊，我们 90年代初的时候，我在喷砖的时候，我见过你，我们还经常在一起呢。
太好。
啊，刚才提的问题就是说川菜最难的地方是什么？是不是啊？
对对对。
川菜很难的地方应该是有几个方向，但是从我们这个爱好我们川菜的人，我觉得最难的就是它味型的掌握，味道的调制。
等一下，我们翻译一下啊，等一下。
啊，好，
一句一句的啊。
He's saying that there's several aspects.
Louder 翻译 please.
There's
这
several
个镜头感可以吧？进入了，你帮刘老师拿一下。
张伟稍微就是不要说话了，因为我们在听这个翻译啊。谢谢你啊。
Oh no, he just said a little bit. He said there's several aspects to what he finds challenging about Sichuan cooking. He said that the making and balancing of the flavor really is the most difficult thing.
OK， 李老师你继续吧。
你继续说。
这个味道是我们做川菜比较难的一个方向以外呢，还有我们川菜还有一个火候的把握，也是一个比较难的一个掌握的一个方向。
Okay, so the control of the heat is another aspect.
那就是说，如果太热也不好，不够热也不好，是这个意思吗？
不，他的意思就是说，我们的火候就是我们对原料食材的那种受热程度的以后所产生的口感，就是我们的火候。就是有的时候需要更多，有的时候需要更少，就是对我们某一个食材的属性的把握，需要我们有比较精准的加热的时间，以及我们用火的大小，大概是这个意思啊，吴老师。
等一下，我们翻译一下啊。
好。
What he refers to as 火候 is, I guess I previously translated that as the control of the fire, of the heat, but what he really means is the taste and textures of the food ingredients after it's come into contact with heat. How it tastes and how the textures feel in your mouth.
See, I find it amazing the way he controls, like when he cooks pork, he keeps the low heat but over a long period of time to create the crispiness. And then he controls like adding the Sichuan pepper only at the end to release the flavor aroma without losing it early on cooking in high heat, right? So Sichuan cooking, I think that's what he's referring to, is the understanding of the ingredients and adjusting your use of heat to the ingredients to bring out the best characters, right? It's very interesting. 所以2点哈，后面这个火候很重要，对，一个是调味，一个是火候，还有吗？
对，应该是这2个方向把握以后呢，川菜的基本的特点就能够体现出来了。
老师，我特别想问，您这个学校现在在培训的这些厨师去做什么？
我们现在应该
What are the students studying and what are they doing, right?
Yeah, and what do they what career are they pursuing? Like
right, okay.
就是我们现在学校培养的学生的以后的这个发展方向，是不是？
是。
我们现在应该是中国以及我们全球都希望我们更多的输出更多的一些川菜的一些人才，所以说我们培养的学生发展的方向是比较多的。国内当然需求量是非常大的，国外呢，因为这个疫情的原因，现在暂时呢放缓了一点。以前没有疫情的时候，我们同学出国的这个工作就业的方式方法也很多的。所以说，这个我们现在中国第3产业发展特别强大的情况下呢，我们餐饮业、酒店业的需求量是特别大的。然后我们还有我们的烹饪教育，现在也是我们同学发展的一个比较大的一个方向啊。郭老师，大概就这些。
好，等一下我们翻译一下，谢谢啊。
So the question was what do the students at the culinary school after graduating? So he's talking about the professional development. So he's saying that of course there are great need for cooks, for people well versed in Sichuan cuisine in mainland China, because the tertiary service, like the industry, is really booming right now. So they have big needs for talents. And as for overseas students, like going overseas right now because of the pandemic it's been hard. But before the pandemic happened, there were a lot of graduates going overseas.
May, you're on mute.
I know, sorry. I'm curious, 这些学生学多长时间? I'm curious about how long the students have to study.
study. 学生学多长时间？
具体学生学多长时间？
罗老师是不是我们的同学在校学习13年，然后企业实习是1年，总共是4年的学习时间。
Oh my god！ 对，在校学习3年，然后实习1年。
企业学习1年，就是4年。
那他们是拿学士学位吗？这是算大学本科学位吗？
本科学历。
Oh wow！
So they study 3 years at the school, and then 1 year at whatever institution they're going to. They do a kind of an apprenticeship, right?
Right. And they get an undergraduate degree. It's longer than the CIA, Culinary Institute of America.
Yeah.
Or maybe
I have a question. Benny, maybe you can translate this into Chinese for us. Has the status of chefs in China gone up in the last 10 or 20 years? I mean, do lots of people want to become chefs?
他问的这个问题是，就是在近几年这个厨师的社会地位是不是有所提升？
这个是明显的。
很多人要学习这个东西。
我们现在的这个厨师啊，在中国的地位应该是达到一个相当好的一个程度。相当好的一个程度，而且我们现在学校招生的这种状况也非常好，所以说意味着我们的厨师的地位比以前是大幅度的提升，而且我们在这个收入上也和其他行业有相近的一些高收入的一些岗位在我们厨师行业当中体现出来，所以说受尊敬受爱戴的这种程度是越来越高，很好的。
我这里听众有一个问题，
我们翻译一下啊，等一下翻译一下。
So regarding the question of chefs' social status now in China, he's saying that like chefs' kind of social position is improving and is getting pretty high right now. So that is shown in the school's admission rate. So there are a lot of students coming in. It's getting more popular, and then also there are some high income chefs, and they have a lot of respect. So.
我们这里有一位听众的问题是说，到您的学校来学习的录取有什么特殊的要求吗？这些学生他们是参加高考呢，还是需要有实践经验？
是这样的哈，如果到我们学校来学习的这个方法有以下几个途径。那么最普遍的就是参加我们中国的高考这个是一个方向。另外一个呢，我们还有一个成教的一个烹饪专业的一个招生成人教育的，这个呢就是相对来说比较宽松一些，就是进学校比较宽松，学这个专业呢拿到这个学历呢要相对来说要困难一些。然后第三个途径就是我们的短期的这个川菜的川点的一些短期培训这个呢就是面向公众大众敞开的，没有学历的学我们的川菜的制作以及小吃，大概就是3个方向。
短期的最短的是有1个星期的吗？
最短的就可以学一个菜1天都可以啊。
Okay, so 等一下我们要翻译一下啊。Okay, so 翻译 and translate.
So the question is, one of the audience members asked, what are the requirements for being admitted to the culinary school? So he's saying that there are several routes. One is you could take the Gaokao, which is the national college entrance exam. And that, that's like a higher requirement. And then the second route is you could do there's like an adult education route that you could take. But that would kind of impact the kind of was it 学历? And then the third one is short-term training. So you can that is open to anyone, and you could take a class for 1 day, and that is fine.
Okay, 1 day, great. 1天我也可以参加。
对 1 day.
I'd like to go for a class for a day.
Yes.
That would be great. Well, so shall we return to a general conversation?
I think we're out of time.
Yeah, but I was just thinking we could take 5 more minutes for any other questions from the audience. Maybe last 5 minutes. 我有最后一个问题，就是想问李老师和郑老师，请问你们为什么爱成都? So my question for Teacher Li and for Teacher Zhang is, why do they love Chengdu?
要不然我们请我们一个同学来回答吧。我们回答可能有一点自己的家乡嘛，我们有其他省的同学来，我们叫同学们来回答一下，好不好？
He's saying let's have some classmates answer because they come from different parts of China, so they can answer. 非常好。
好，来，我们来一个同学来，我们同学来回答，好不好？
嗨，你好。So， 请问您贵姓啊？
我姓吴。
Okay, so 吴什么名字呢？
吴韵阳。
吴韵阳 ，OK， so
的韵阳加酱的阳。
OK， 请问吴韵阳，请问你是什么地方来的？
我是四川彭州的。
Okay, so she's from Sichuan, from a different part of Sichuan. And 问题是说你爱成都吗？如果爱的话，你为什么成都有什么好处？
对，因为成都的天气比较好。对，天气比较好，然后人比较好，然后各方面都好。
你说的是什么方向好？什么好？
天气、环境，然后地理位置也好，美食，然后美女、帅哥也多，欢迎大家到成都来做客。对，我们成都是一个很包容的，然后城市，包容性很强，幸福感也很强。
Okay, so 等一下翻译一下。
好的。
So yes, she says Chengdu good weather. There's a really good, the environment is really good. The people are really good and friendly. There's a lot of good looking people.
And it's a very, I guess the most important thing she said is it's very welcoming, right? It's a very welcoming city.
Tolerant.
Tolerant. Okay, tolerant. Oh, interesting. Okay.
郑老师，我们所有的观众都在向您向师傅要这个菜谱，这一道菜是怎么做的？回头给我们一下好不好？
菜谱我们下来整理一下，整理好了以后，我们在群里面发一下，好不好？
好极了。
我们今天晚上有差不多200个人参加，我们200个人都想到你们学校去学习。
哇，欢迎 ，welcome.
I said all of our audience tonight wants to go and study in
our school.
Yeah.
Sichuan Tourism University. Sichuan 旅游学院。
Yeah, it's a Sichuan Tourist University. Zhang 老师 thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. 下来
Thank you.
我们带客人到您
欢迎来成都啊！我们在成都等你们。
Thank you so much, 张老师、李老师，非常感谢 ，so fantastic。期待去拜访你们。Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye bye.
Okay.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Dinda,
So I think our time's up, right? But we are just so thrilled. We are so happy to have had this opportunity to go to the Sichuan, Sichuan's most famous Culinary Institute, and have a wonderful conversation with Jing and with Fuchsia Dunlop. We hope that you will tune in again soon. Thank you so much. You want to say some final words, May?
Yes, Dinda, I think the session is so fantastic. It's worth the nail biting.
Right. We were a little worried about the technology. Yes.
And now we're all going to go to the kitchen and try out this tofu dish. I just want to say a few words. We actually, WildChina does have a trip with Fuchsia Dunlop twice a year to China. And the one that was scheduled to go in May for food in China is postponed, obviously, to next year. Yeah. But there is one in September going to Yunnan, south of Sichuan, which is a blend of Sichuan cooking with like southern sort of Southeast Asian influence. It's also quite interesting. So go to our website, wildchina.com or info@wildchina.com if you have any questions. And we look forward to seeing you on a lot more Taste of China episodes and Wild China on air episodes. Right. Thank you.
And we definitely need to travel, right? That's the most important thing in terms of us, understanding each other. We need to go and see and taste and smell and have the experience. So thank you all for joining tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I think your dog needs you.
I know. Talk soon. Talk next time.
Bye.
Bye.